No idea is original. It's never what you do, it's how it's done. Now, my favorite rapper Nas said that in his song called No Idea is Original on the 2002 album The Lost Tapes. And that's the point that I want to talk about today. No ideas original. Now, Nas said this in one of his songs, but it's in the Bible as well. And that's where he got those other lyrics from, that nothing is new under the sun. It's in Ecclesiastes 1 verse 9, chapter 1 verse 9. But anyway, I was thinking about some things. I was talking to one of my homies one day, and I was telling them about how back when I was a rapper, all that I did was like just draw, constant drawing influence from other rappers, whether it was in songs that are released that I'm on. I took some stuff from Jay Electronica. I took some stuff from Kanye West, but it made me think back and think, you know, I take stuff from other people, but there's countless, like literally countless examples of artists that we know who, I'm not going to say blatantly steal ideas, but use ideas, draw influence from people who came before them. And that's what I want to talk about in this series. Let me correct myself that in this series, no idea is original. Now, on the surface, some music and inspirations that we fall influence to or fall influenced by come off as new, innovative, original, for lack of a better word. But when you pull back the curtain, so to speak, of what we thought was original, you can see that that idea was taken from somewhere else. Or maybe the foundation of an idea was taken from somewhere else. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. And upon doing some research or coming across the song that sounds similar to another song or lyrics that sound similar to other lyrics, I really began to realize how much of the artists that are actually on, not like upcoming people, not your homeboy next door who raps or sings, how much influence, how many ideas are taken, borrowed, stolen uh, in the music industry and in music in general. We have things like samples. We have things like covers, people doing covers that I'm going to talk about in a later part of this series. But I want to talk about that today. And the first topic that I chose to speak on is ignorance. And we're going to talk about what ignorance is and what I mean by ignorance. But just the goal of this series that I'm going to be doing is to pull back the curtain and get like a semi-visceral look at the potential origins that some of the music that I love and maybe you love too, and just take a look at it, and you have a new appreciation. What I get is a new appreciation for some of the OG artists, or my horizons are broadened. Now, enough of that. In my interview with Pizzo, you could find that episode on the Cool Hand Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever. I mentioned, and we're talking about fashion in this episode, and he's talking about Kanye. And I say, Kanye is a lot of you boys' daddies, and you need to realize that. And I was saying that in the sense of music and fashion, but in the context of music, Kanye is a lot of y'all boys' daddies. He is. He brought a lot of new sounds to hip hop, and he had people like you think about somebody like Travis Scott. Travis Scott has a lot of young fans now, but if you're like me, you remember when Travis Scott just came out. I still have like the OG Al Faro leaks on my super old laptop. And one of the reasons why I keep my super old laptop is because it has some of those original, like those leaked Travis Scott songs on it. He came out sounding like Kanye. He came out sounding like that My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy sound that Kanye had back in, 2010. So I'm getting off track, but I want to talk about Kanye West real quick. And contrary to what I was saying about how he's a lot of people's dads, walk with me. Just take this walk with me. The year is 2013. Kanye West is coming off of My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, Watch the Throne with Jay-Z, and the Cruel Summer album with his record label at the time, Good Music. Now, around this time, Kanye, prior to this, to his next album releasing, you can catch Kanye out rocking all black. He's dating Kim Kardashian at the time, and he's just wearing all black hoodies. He's wearing like the waxed leather jeans. If you remember that, he's wearing the leather jeans and black hoodies, black t-shirts, everything. And honestly, to tell you the truth, as a side, that era that he was in, this 2013, 2012, 2013 era, the way Kanye was dressing back then had a huge influence on myself. I and I'm gonna keep it tall. I'm gonna keep it tall. I wear a lot of black. I buy a lot of black. In my, at 29 years old, I'm starting to get out of that, like trying to wear some more color. I got married. My wife's like, you look nice in colors and woo, woo, woo. So I started, I started to try to wear colors and stuff. Yeah, I mean, peep the hat. But he's wearing all black. It's real mysterious. And you know that he's moving in a different direction right now. So what direction was this? What era was this? It was the Yeezus era. Now, Yeezus is I personally liked the project, but Yeezus drops, and leading up to it, not only how he was dressing, how mysterious this was, he had the performance on Saturday Night Live. The promotion was kind of not weird, but there was big performances, like what's the word, projected on screens of like Kanye's face, and you heard some music and woo woo, all this other stuff. But this is the era that we're in, 2013. So you think about what Kanye West was coming off of, and My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, Watch the Throne, and Cruel Summer. Now, while those all were great projects, and I'm going to use the word great, the weakest of the three was probably Cruel Summer, but it was still great. They all had a sound that was not crazy out of there. It wasn't out of the way. It wasn't way out. Like, this ain't hip hop. This ain't, you know what I'm talking about? Yeezus drops. I bought it. I bought the CD. We lived down a hill from a Target, and we lived in Austell, Georgia at the time. And I walked up. I ain't have no car, no license, no whip. Walked up to Target, bought the CD for like $10 and like a little less than $11. I don't own it anymore. I don't endorse it, but I did buy it. And as another side, J. Cole's Born Sinner and Mac Miller's Watching Movies with the Sound Off came out the same day. This was a big year for hip hop. I don't know if you understand. This was a huge year for hip hop. Huge. And all three of those albums are nice. All three of them are nice. So the project comes out to mixed reactions. Some people loved it. Some people hated it. I personally liked it at the time, and I didn't love every single song on it, but I thought that it was so strong that the goods outweighed the, as the young people say, mid. Like it outweighed the things that I didn't like about it. So I thought it was Kanye's last great album, and I'm gonna stand on that. I'm gonna stand on that to this day. After 2013, after Yeezus came out, I thought he took a big dive, mostly in lyricism. I'm not going to get into that because that's not what this podcast is about, but I stand by Yeezus was the last great Kanye West album. Continuing on. So, mixed reviews. There was, it was a sound that I myself was not used to. And to put some things in perspective, around this time, I really just listened to hip hop and like rap. Around this time, trap was still like the trap sound, like the Lex Luger sound was like hitting hard. So that's the that's the vibe around this time, like hustle hard type songs and all this stuff. So we're coming we're around this era, and what I listened to on Yeezus was like, what, like whoa, like it was like something new. It was like trying a new food. Like you didn't know that it was gonna taste like this. I didn't know what I was listening to, but I knew that I liked it. I knew the sound was not the traditional music that I listened to in hip hop and rap and trap and woo woo woo. I wasn't even listening to R&B like that back then. So Yeezus was something that was classified as industrial, acid house, electro, punk. And like I said before, it was something that I wasn't used to. Like even now, I couldn't describe what industrial is. I don't couldn't tell you what acid house is. Like to this day, I can't tell you what that is. So once again, in this era, I was somebody who used internet forums. So there was one specific forum. It was a Kanye West forum by chance. And although it was a Kanye West forum, there were a lot of different subsections of this internet forum where you can discuss music, fashion, life, and advice, so on and so forth. So a lot of the main name that I was seeing thrown around when this project came out was Death Grips. Death Grips, Death Grips. Oh, this is just Death Grip sound. And once again, this goes back to how some people were blown away by it, like myself, and some people hated it for one reason or another. But one of the reasons that some people hated it was because I'm gonna call them pretentious. I'm gonna call them pretentious, and it like I'm gonna say we're humans, we're imperfect. People can be pretentious. They can be gatekeepers. You know, that's a word that people use now. Gatekeepers. We didn't know that word back in 2013. I didn't. I feel like y'all made that up overnight. But who am I? I'm not the smartest person in the world, so I'm not gonna act like. Anyway, so when I hear these pretentious people saying, "Oh, it's just he's just taking death grapes and the death grapes and woo 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 woo," so I go ahead and look up what is this death grips that people were talking about, and I look them up. I'm like, okay, these are. It looks like a trio of weirdos, if you ask me. And it had like a weird album cover. I check it out, blown away. I was blown away because once again, it was a sound I never heard, and it was taken to the next level. Like Yeezus was tame compared to what I listened to with Death Grips. And then another name that was thrown around because this person also worked on Yeezus, and I don't know what songs they worked on. And the other name that I would see thrown around was Arca. And I'm mentioning these two artists specifically because these were two artists that I grasped onto post listening to this Kanye West album. So I'm like, okay, who's Arca? Who's Arca? Who's Arca? I look up Arca, and they have this record out called Zen. And so I listened to it. I add it, and back then this is iTunes, no streaming services. I add this album, and the first song was called Now You Know. I'm listening to it. I swear, my head went like this. My mind was completely blown by what I was listening to. I was an Arca fan ever since. Ever since. What's the point? The point here is this album, not only was I able to see where some of the influence came from with Kanye West's 2013 album Yeezus, but it also opened me up to a whole new world of music. Now, the whole Death Grips thing, that's up for debate, I guess. Like if Kanye West literally drew influence or ideas from them, but Arca worked on it, worked on some of the sounds. So you can definitely credit Arca for Yeezus. But listening to this, listening to Yeezus, and then hearing these other musicians, my world, my horizons were broadened. My world was opened up a little more musically because once again, when it comes to originality, and I guess this is the main point with originality, I thought Yeezus was original, innovative. It was different. And I guess at this moment in time, originality was in the eye of the beholder because I was somebody who was strictly listening to hip hop, was strictly listening to the hottest rappers out. I was listening out, not the hottest rappers out. That's false because that's to me that makes me sound like I was like on some mainstream stuff only. But that's like the elitist, pretentious person in myself coming out because I was just listening to rap. I was listening to everything was rap. Everything was rap. So to hear Yeezus, I'm like, oh man, I like this. This is different. But to somebody who actually knew this sound, this industrial sound, this acid house, electro, magnetic, pop, punk, whatever, it wasn't new. It was like, okay, I see Kanye West is trying to like tap into this bag now. He's trying to take this style. Now, unlike My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, the sound that he had with My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, the industry, the rap, like you can obviously hear some of producers and people taking that style. And I can't describe the style either. I apologize when it comes to My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. But I mentioned somebody like Travis Scott. You had the certain producers were putting those certain synths that you would hear on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy in their music. So Kanye West's influence, once again, he was birthing sons with that project. Now you took a look at Yeezus. He didn't birth nothing from that album, and maybe that's why people also didn't enjoy it as much because the sound that he brought on that project did not spread throughout the hip hop game. And maybe that was his goal. I don't know. I know some of the other inspirations was art. If you look up the ideas behind Yeezus and minimalism and so on and so forth. But continuing on with that, I want to say the ignorance. I was an ignorant hip hop fan who didn't know anything but hip hop and some of the R&B that came on the radio when I was young, listening to the radio. It was brand new. It was fresh. It was different. It was original. And then again, this is not to knock Kanye West because he made his own sound. He like did his own thing with the influences that he did have and with the help that he did have from other producers such as Arca. And there was a lot more people that he worked with like Hudson Mohawk and some other people that I can't name them all. I don't have them written down and all that. My last point here is that it was a gateway for me. It was a gateway into another world, another realm. You have people that I listen to or groups that I listen to now, like Crystal Castles. Think about Aphex Twin. I never had to say Aphex Twin out loud. So if I'm pronouncing it wrong, please correct me. So bands like that, you have, and then there's connecting bands. It may not be like songs, groups, styles that are exactly like this Death Grips and Arca and Crystal Castles, but this is how things expand. It's like a string of, it's like, it's like a DNA, like, you know what I'm talking about? It's like DNA and it just connects and other styles just connect to it. And you just come around, you and see what else is a derivative of this specific type of music. So that's it. No Ideas Original. This is just one of many little segments that I'm going to do. because there's a lot of different things that are not original that we may be ignorant to. So if you watch this, thank you for watching. This is the Cool Hand Podcast, something you got to deal with. I'm Q, and I'm out. Easy.